All right. Good morning and Happy New Year, everybody. As always, we have our U.S. Women's National Team head coach Emma Hayes here to answer your questions after the release of the January camp roster. Also for the first two matches of the year against Paraguay and LA, and then we'll head up to Santa Barbara to play Chile. If you have a question for Emma, please raise your hand. We'll get right to it because we do not have a ton of time today. Emma has meetings stacked upon meetings, as do I, actually. Um, Pretty much not the same ones, though. All right, we'll start with Steve Goff. Go ahead.
Hey, Emma, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thanks. Wanted to ask you about Trinity returning to the fold. It's obviously been a up and down year, past year for her, but now she's back. And how her free agency uh, fits into all this, and your thoughts on where things stand for her heading into 2026. Thanks.
Well, first of all, it's a fresh year, a fresh start for every player, to be honest. We all know that whomever's selected into this squad, it's the very beginning of pre-seasons for most of them. So I think for Trin to come back into the fold now, the starting point is the same for everyone. I know she has been working hard in the off season just to keep developing her resiliency and her robustness. And though I haven't spoken to her in the last couple of weeks, we did exchange a text the other day, which was, you haven't clicked yes to your flight. So get your flight booked. And she said, don't worry, I will be there. So I'm excited about that. I think with regards to the free agency piece, we haven't discussed that. It's still ongoing. And I think that when Trin has time to, have something to say on that, then she will when the time's right for that. But as of the moment, I don't have any new updates on it.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go to Jonathan Tannenwald.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, I'm a happy new year. Hope
Hey,
all's
Jonathan.
well. There's a piece of this that might end up involving you, and I would hope that you'll be willing to address it because when the league, when the NWSL announced this new high impact player rule, they put all this criteria down on this list of ways that players can qualify for it, and it says among them, top 11 minutes played for the U.S. national team in the prior 2 years for field players, or top one in minutes for played for goalkeepers, and in a way that puts some of that in your hands with lineup choices and substitutions. And I'm curious as to whether you're comfortable with that, and also whether the league told you in advance at all that they were going to put this in there.
First of all, no, I didn't know about it. Hive definitely mentioned it to me, and sometimes, like, especially coming from England and working in a league where you it's organized so much differently. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to understand the implications of certain things. I know that the NWSLPA and the league are trying to work through that criteria. I'd say it's between them to try and do that, but when it comes to um yeah, I don't know whether that influences playing time or should affect that. Like, nothing will change with me and the way that I'm doing things, regardless of any ruling that's put in place. I think that, to be honest with you, it's probably going to be um, a little bit longer until they resolve what that criteria is. Whether it ends up being that or something else, you'd have to ask them. But from my perspective, nothing changes with regards to how I will operate.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, JT. Let's see. Jeff Kassouf, go ahead.
Hey, Emma, thanks for taking the time again. Um, if I could maybe on the other side with Trinity, just on the health piece, what are your expectations with camp, especially as far as games and game minutes go? And just sort of, I know you said you didn't discussed directly maybe her club situation, but you've talked a lot recently about what your role is or isn't in these processes, right? And this one's been pretty unique. It's been very more public than I can remember any other one. Has that, even if you call it support, maybe has that looked different in terms of how you support her player, given how sort of public this has been and up and down with the rule and everything?
You know what, Jeff? No, because it's just how I do things. I think it's like I always just put whatever's the priority for the player first, and then whatever their needs are. Like Sophia Smith might have had different needs being pregnant than Trinity Rodman in her situation with a long-standing injury and obviously entering free agency. But I'm also accustomed to many of our players either coming to the end of their contracts or they might move during contracts. Like these things are always ongoing, so it's not an unusual place for me to be in. I think when it comes to Trin, sometimes I think it's just a maternal instinct in me to be quite protective because I think she's an important player for club, for country, and having managed similar profile players like Trin, I've recognised that that they might have to get some additional support, particularly with like the expectations and the pressures that come with it. So maybe I'll amp up my support in that way, but I will also offer whatever those needs are elsewhere. And I think when it comes to the playing front, I don't know where she's at. Like I haven't seen Trin train or play. All I can say is I see her having a foot race with Ben Shelton on the tennis court the other day. She looked, I think she'd be disappointed she didn't get a little bit closer towards the end. But if she gives me the thumbs up, which she has done to say, I'm good, I'm in a good place, I have to take that at her word. And when she comes in January, the management, it's not just of Trin. A lot of these players might only just start be building up their pre-season training. So it's a tricky one as a manager because we want to be able to put our best teams out. But the reality is we're going to have to build minutes into each and every one of them. So managing her playing time along with the other 25 players is going to be exactly the same. But I have the experience of doing it last year. The difference this year is we have games. So I have to, but I've also done it as a pre-season. I've done it as a head coach managing Chelsea in pre-seasons where you've had a game sort of a week or 2 weeks into pre-season. So like this is a really familiar pattern for me. So just got to try and get it right for her. And I don't want to build it up too much because last time I spoke about it, you know what I mean? I really hope she makes it to camp for her. Like I felt so gutted for her. I hope she makes it to camp, and I do genuinely think she is in a much better place than she was then.
Thanks, Emma.
Let's go to Pardeep. Go ahead, Pardeep.
Hey, Emma, you actually just touched on this a little, but I did want to ask you about the differences between last January camp and this one, and also because of the fact there are games at the end, and also the mix of younger, less experienced players in the group this time, and what you hope the experience is for them, especially with some of the more veteran players in the group.
Well, as I always say, I can only pick the players that are available. So with no European-based players, no Gotham-based players. I think this really is the last window in preparation for 27, where we will see the opportunities for so many new players. I'm not saying there won't be somebody that is in our pool of players that won't push through for 27, but I feel pretty clear about the pool of players for that. And I think she believes will be much, much closer, depending on how fit and well and healthy everyone is, than this one. But what a great opportunity. I get the chance to see, in particular, if I talk so much about the 23s, and when I speak with Heather Dyche about the impact Riley Jackson and Maddie Darlene had in camp for her, and how consistent their performances have been, or how good Ryland Turner's back end of last season was. And yes, ordinarily, if we had the European-based players or Gotham-based players, we might not see these players, but that's the opportunity that presents itself. So I'm looking forward to that part. I also think you can see where we can have consistency, we will do that. Everybody is very clear on what their role is positionally. Maybe we will certainly start to lean into what their roles become as the year pans out and we get closer to qualification. But my goal has always been the same, which is develop a larger playing pool, developing them with absolute clarity. The January camp is an opportunity to actually look at players that might have the impact for some. Some might push in at 27, but actually 28. I still have to prepare for that as well as the World Cup. And there will be ample playing time for everybody because of the stage of the season. The realities are in game one, at least 5 players have to play 90 minutes. But I can make 6 changes. Am I going to make 6 changes in both games? 1000% because of the time of year. So what a great opportunity for everyone in our squad to get a look in that moment. And I will definitely be using like a lot of the good references of last year's future camps and the impact that that had for those players. I think that we might be sitting here next year talking about the, I don't know, the impact it had for Maddie and Riley in a year's time. And who knows, they may be knocking on the door for the World Cup.
Thanks.
Thank you. Don Juan, go ahead, man.
Thanks. Hi, Emma. Happy New Year to you. Obviously the first January camp is always kind of a way to look at the entire year. We know you have qualifying at the end of the year, and as you start evaluating players, there's going to be a point where you have to start narrowing down. Have you thought about how that process is going to go and when you will start to hone in on your players that you will take to the CONCACAF W Championship?
What I've learned in this job is you can only pick the players that are available. That's the first thing. I think it's pretty fair to say that going into She Believes, that'll be whittled down. Like if without question, I will pick the strongest possible rosters going from February onwards that I believe that the group of players that are going to be competing for that group in November, December time. So I would say almost immediately. I will starting from this year, I'm picking the players that I think will be competing to play within that group.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Donald. Let's go to Sylvia.
Hi, Emma. Just a question with this group being young and inexperienced, what does the leadership aspect of that look like for this camp? Maybe captaincy, like who are you sort of leaning on? And then second, I know we haven't really talked about her yet, but what does it look like in terms of easing Sophia Wilson back into?
You know what? It's a great question, because I think that this is going to be a team with an absence of so much leadership and so much seniority. But I talk a lot about succession planning. Well, what a great opportunity to start to develop next generation leaders. And for me, I think that is something that's going to be important. I haven't decided on who the leader will be because obviously they've got to get into camp. They've got to see if they're available for what playing time. But I would absolutely relish the opportunity to start developing some that if they don't already sit outside of the leadership group, they are going to be tomorrow's leaders. And I am adamant that the experiences, not just this camp, but almost all of them going to give us is not always about just a core group of 24 players that are competing for 27. Like we want to compete to win the Olympics. So can you imagine the leadership responsibilities that someone like Claire Hutton's going to get from a camp like this? Because she's going to be considered one of the more experienced midfielders, at least in our group right now, even at her tender age. Same with Trinity Rodman. Trinity Rodman's been around, a period of time, though she's been absent from us. She's still stayed very connected, but an experienced player relative to, the cumulative experience in the group. So my job is to develop more leaders. I look forward to that one in this camp. And I know that that will bear fruit. If it's not for 27, it will be for 28 and it will for 31.
Thanks. Claire has tied for the fifth most caps on the roster, by the way. Let's go to
Uh,
Sean. Let's go to Sean Hardnett. Go ahead.
Good morning, Coach Hayes. When it comes to the process of bringing in new players who are getting their first opportunity with the national team, can you give us a little bit more insight on how the discussions go with the under 23 staff and possibly with the clubs, just making sure that now is the right time for them, that they've met your criteria?
yeah, good question. We have a scouting, monitoring, and tracking process which puts together WNT, YNT, talent ID, and the analytics and scouting that goes with that. And there's a whole process. We have at the very top of that process, WNT core players, what we call core players. Let me just hang on, I'll bring it up the 5 criteria so I don't get one of them wrong. One sec. I don't want to get one of them wrong, that's why. So this is a combination of people. This will be WNT staff, YNT staff, analytics, but we refer to it as, sorry, it's just opening. WNT core, which is players that are consistently in the team. WNT pool, which is players that are consistently in the conversation for a selection, has been in at least 3 camps and has had first cap. A WNT prospect, which is a player that's being monitored and considered. A WNT high potential, as a young player that has potential but that's not ready. An under 23 pool player, and a game plan specific player, which is older players with experience. We know them, we know what they can bring, but they might not be regulars, for example. So that whole process has a very, very detailed like monitoring and tracking process for each and every one of our players. So when we meet on a regular basis as staff, we discuss first of all provisional roster. We'll put a large pool together, and then any of those, when ideally that large provisional roster is the senior group and under 23. So say for example we need to take players upwards, they'll always come from within that pool of players, not anybody outside of that. Then it will be a presentation on where that player might fit depending on who they are. Are they a core player? Are they a pool player? Are they a high prospect player? Different groups might then present in and around where they sit within our game model and what their strengths are and all of those things. And then people will advocate for them with a combination of video evidence, sometimes data analysis, and then we'll have discussions in and around it. And then do they have do they have the mental fitness, the readiness to be able to do that? And if they do, most importantly, to your point, they're coming in for the first time. What is their onboarding? What does that look like? What work do we have to do in prep before they even get in the building so that they understand the basics because they're going to feel behind? Then what support do we give while they're in there? And we carve up the roles and responsibilities to be able to help support that player. Like it's comprehensive work. Like this is always so much that people don't always see with coaching. But I think we have a really thorough process and have a really experienced staff, WNT, YNT, that includes Tracy Kevins, it includes Heather Dyche, within that group that will help support the move of players in both directions. Sorry that's a long one.
Comprehensive process, comprehensive answer. Everyone appreciates that. Let's go to Justin.
Hi, I wanted to ask a bit about the goalkeeper group here as well. Obviously, with Fallon unavailable, you bring Jordan Silkowitz in, and I want to just ask you how that's been evolving. And with another 3 game window coming up, is this one where you start to see Claudia Dickey pick up, more of those starts? Or are you still experimenting with kind of who starts in net?
I think Claudia's in a strong position. I think it's fair to say her and Fallon, have been given more of the minutes over this period of time. Fallon obviously cannot join this camp because she's a European-based player. But I'll get the chance to see how Mandy's progressing in her pre-season. And Jordan doesn't have a lot of experience. Didn't play a lot of YNT. Didn't play any YN. Doesn't have any YNT experience. I think it showed in her first camp. But I want to be able to give her a second opportunity to see how she copes with the learning from the first one to the second one. And I had a call with her club coach today, Emma Coates, just in and around the types of things that she needs to develop in her club environment. And her new manager is very supportive of doing that. And I think there are a pool of players into Angelina Anderson, one of them as well. They just need to keep developing a little bit more experience. And then, of course, there's some Casey Murphy who's made a move to Boston. I'd be curious to see how that invigorates her. And I think Aubrey had a really good season too. We know about Jane, but I feel very strongly about Claudia and Fallon at this moment in time. I think for Mandy, she is maybe not got the looks of the other two, but she's progressing and developing as a keeper at her stage and her age.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks. Let's go to Sandra. We only have time for a few more. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Emma, you've chatted a little bit about this already on the call, but with this officially being 2026 for the player competitive side of things, for some of these players, maybe the biggest roster they can make or find themselves on will be that 2026 qualifying roster in November. So with this being the first camp and it being a real mix of a lot of less capped, less experienced players, there's still also sprinkling of some players who do have those epic experiences. I mean, Rodman was part of that Olympic team, as was Sams and Bethune, but they are two particular players that had very kind of specific roles in that tournament, or obviously had that tournament affected or impacted by injury. What are maybe the conversations like or planning like for those types of players who have maybe found themselves on rosters and maybe not yet found themselves broken through as what they could be considered like a regular minutes? Thank you.
Well, I think first of all, one of the great things about coaching this team is the talent pool is deep. So with Croy, one of the things I spoke to her about is you need to stay healthy. To be competitive, you've got to stay healthy on a regular basis. I think she's done that. Two, she's got to find consistency in her performance. And so I think from year one to year two, you can see that her touches in the final third, final passes have remained pretty consistent, but her assists and goals have declined. And I think that's something she has to still keep working at and finding consistency as, and she knows that. But I think she came in last camp, and that was the first time last year I thought she was in a really, really good place, and she felt that way too. I think a good start to the season. Listen, it's competitive for that number 10 position. We're talking about when Soph comes back, Kat Macario could play in the 10, Rose Lavelle can play in the 10, Jaden Shaw, Olivia Moultrie, Lindsay Horan. Like there's a lot of players. Like, so you have to be at the top end and performing to be able to do that. And Croy knows that. I think when it comes to Emily Sams, I think the same thing. I think Naomi Girma and Emily Sonnet have been the standout two centre backs for this team. I think Jordan Bug is a prospect that will be competitive with this team for years to come. I think for Emily Sams, she needs to keep progressing. I think last year she's 8 out of 10 in everything she does week in, week out. But I think finding her next level, that's her next challenge. She knows that. We have a lot of conversations about it. She does a lot of development work on it. And I know she's very committed to try and find that. And I always use Emily Sonnet as a really good example for Emily Sams and I always say to her, look how long Sonnet sort of waited and maybe even played in a number of situations. I know sometimes you might have to just bide your time with that because there are quality players ahead of her. But I think for her, she's gone from, the NWSL Defender of the Year. And last year, I think it was a good season for her. But I wanted to kick on and progress a little more.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks. Let's go to Sydney. Go ahead, Sydney.
I want to ask you, you mentioned, of course, no Gotham players on the roster, of course. Champions Cup going on at the Emirates at the end of the month. Yeah, obviously, you look at Gotham's roster, number of, yeah, as we all know, number of U.S. women's national team players within the player pool. When you look at a competition like the Champions Cup, Champions League, maybe players in the U.S. are playing in Champions League, how do competitions like that really continue to enhance the status of the women's national team from a global profile, especially in this long arc with 2027, the World Cup, and then 2028, the Olympics, and then you mentioned 2031. How do competitions like that, really prepare players in the U.S. women's national team pool for, you know, competitions like that?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity. Like, super excited for Gotham and the players there, to get that opportunity in London. Because, like you said, that creates champions like competition that I think is so important to the development of the players. I think the only difference is Arsenal are halfway through their season and Gotham will be in the middle of their pre-season. So I think that's always a tough test. But there's so much quality on Gotham's roster that I have no doubt that whomever they play, like if they qualify to even compete against Arsenal, that that they have a lot of quality and depth, and I think it will be a fantastic experience for the players.
And speaking of Gotham, Tierna Davidson is also on her way back when talking about center
Woo-hoo.
back depth. Yes. Roberto, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here. I have a question for you, Ms. Hayes. What will the U.S. women's national team do for 2026 that could be different from 2025?
Ooh. Listen, you're talking to like someone who believes in consistency, like in behaviors, in approach. To be a world-class team, you have to have that. There is no question we will keep, I hope, improving what we're doing. Like, I think that you only do that gradually. You don't do that with just changing things all of the time. Like, I believe in consistent approaches to do that. And I hope that we get to the end of this year and we're talking about, going to the World Cup. Like, that's what all of our thoughts are on, is qualifying for the World Cup. Like, it will be locking in, it will be really, really honing in on ensuring that our game is equipped to be able to qualify for the World Cup.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Last one goes to Nathan Luna. Go ahead, Nathan.
Hi, Emma. Happy New Year. I just wanted to ask about the upcoming match. With this being the first international match on the Central Coast, what do you think games like this do for the soccer community and help promote women's soccer in the U.S.?
Talking
I think
about Santa Barbara game, of course, Emma.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, I'm super excited about that. I mean, I'm excited to go to different parts of the country. It's something I've really asked, everybody across the federation, where possible, can we go and see different parts of the country and meet different fans. I think it's important for us, and I think going to LA is obviously fabulous, but going to Santa Barbara, I mean, first of all, what a gorgeous place. But to be able to do that in a place, no, I don't actually know when the last time the team was there. Hive will probably know that. But it's just exactly the type of situation that we want for ourselves. And I think you'll see as our schedule develops over the year, we have been really thoughtful about creating more of those situations.
Thank you.
Awesome. And yeah, the U.S. Women's National Team was last played a game in Santa Barbara in 1991 when a young assistant coach named Aaron Heifetz was on the bench for the Gauchos.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
yes. So we'll see you soon, Nathan. Everybody, thank you for joining. So sorry we had to cut it short, but we'll talk to everyone soon.